David Bezmozgis. I'm the writer of The Free World.
Great to have you here.
Nice.
Welcome to the UK.
So the idea of the novel being set in Rome, family of Soviet Jews in Rome, I think, yes, to my mind also it's the only novel to be set like that, year 1978. It has something to do with the first book, which is my collection of stories, Natasha, which treated a family very much like this one once they arrive in North America. So it's the experience of arriving and assimilating. But the bigger story for me was always what came before, and that was the story that I wanted to tell for a long time. I always thought that the best way to approach that story was this period, this sort of purgatory in Rome, where all these Soviet Jews who had left the Soviet Union, had never been outside of the Eastern Bloc, find themselves in the West where they thought they'd never be. And I'd heard a lot about this experience. I'd gone through it with my family, but I was quite young. But this sense of liberation and people finding themselves, and how romantic and dramatic it all was. I heard of love affairs, and I heard of swindles and people deciding their fate really on a whim, not knowing where they were going to go. And I thought, what a wonderful setting for a novel to tell the story of these people, and in a larger, even more ambitious sense, to tell the story of not just this one family, but to have this family stand in for the entire Soviet Jewish experience. And that was the inspiration behind the book. When I talk about a fidelity to the community, it's actually a very dynamic community. It's also, when you look at it historically, the Russian experience, and particularly the Russian Jewish experience of the 20th century, I think is the most tumultuous and frankly probably the most tragic experience of the 20th century. These are people who went through and suffered through and participated in one way or another, the fall of the Tsar, the rise, the revolution, the Civil War, the pogroms of the time, the Second World War, then Stalinism afterwards, then leaving the Soviet Union, and all of these things contrast. And some people believed in it deeply, and some people saw it for the fraud that it had become, and it was just a big joke. And in this family, you get a sense of all of this. You have somebody who is a true believer, who's Samuel, who has one of the voices, and that was essential for me to represent. Another is his youngest son, Alec, who, is like a lot of men I knew who were my parents' age, children of the 60s who didn't believe in this anymore, who knew that they had very few prospects in the Soviet Union, so basically drank and caroused and tried to make the most of their situation. And then the third voice is Paulina, Alec's voice, Alec's wife, who I think brought a more rational, logical, even lyrical voice to it. In there. And then Alec has a brother, Carl, who in a different sense, I was also thinking about, what this community represented. So you had people who were Alec, like Alec, a romantic, a playboy, who really didn't think much about tomorrow. And then you had a guy like Carl, who really was a true capitalist, but repressed by the Soviet system. And people like that are the people who, came to the West and prospered. And people like that are the people who 10, 15 years later became oligarchs. Carl is just a man who was about 10 years too early. Or had he remained in the Soviet Union, he probably would have become, like one of these oligarchs that we've heard about. Very pragmatic, very ruthless. Whereas Alex saw communism for the lie that it was and just played it as a game, Carl saw communism for the lie that it was and wanted to take advantage of it. And as soon as he was given the opportunity, he did.